Justin Herbert lit it up on day 2 of training camp, and I think the coaches are starting to find out that their superstar quarterback is indeed a cyborg.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I am your host, David Droegemeier. I've been covering the Chargers for 9 seasons, but this is my 7th as the co-host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen, and make sure that you never miss the show by going to subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcasts from. On today's show, we're going to talk about Justin Herbert lighting it up on day 2 of training camp, slinging it all over the ball yard, and running back J.K. Dobbins saying that if he's healthy and if he gets the right volume, he expects to be one of the top backs in the NFL. And offensive coordinator Greg Roman is going to get a little bit creative with some of his backup offensive linemen. And of course, Daniel Wade's going to jump on the show from paternity leave. He couldn't stay away, so he's going to be back on to talk about training camp day number 2. But before I bring him on, I got to tell you guys that today's show is sponsored by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, without further ado, here he is, Daniel Wade. Well, my partner is here, Daniel Wade, the guy that I have been doing Chargers podcasts with for almost a decade. It is unbelievable that we are still doing this. Love it. And I'm happy to have you back on the show, Dan. How's everything going, brother?
It's going good, man. Like you said, I can't stay away. This time away with the baby takes just kind of bursting out of me. And I need a microphone to let them all out. I can't special guest every day of my paternity leave. But I do love that I get to come on today, especially talk about Justin Herbert lighting things up and just kind of like he does every once in a while, reminding everyone that he is that guy and he's one of the best in the league.
Gotta love it, man. I can't wait till I get to watch Justin Herbert start on playing football on Sundays, and man, he's just a special athlete. And I'm really excited about what this offense is going to look like. And on day 2 of training camp, according to team reporter Eric Smith, he was lighting it up. He said that the Chargers franchise quarterback was on fire to start 11 on 11s. He completed his first 8 of 9 passes against the defensive reserves. Daniel, you got to love that. We all know what Justin Herbert is capable of. And when he is on a roll, he can make any throw on the football field.
The thing I like the most in that part of it was just Eric Smith saying that it also included 320-plus yard completions. I think that is one thing a little bit underrated about what you're going to get in a Greg Roman offense potentially is when you do run the ball as much as Greg Roman likes to run the ball. If you look at even like what Lamar Jackson's average depth of target was in the time that Greg Roman was his offensive coordinator, like he wants to go play action, set up deep shots, and find explosive plays. So to say, hey, he's completing 8 of 9 passes, almost 90% of his passes, and 3 of those are big plays down the field. How could you really have, any issue with that? And I think it's also just kind of funny at this point that you're not seeing more people talk about just the day that Justin Herbert had it on day 2 of training camp, because maybe we're a little bit numb to it at this point. Maybe we take it for granted a little bit just because of how hard the end of the seasons have been the last few years. Just that Justin Herbert really is that guy. And I think the other really impressive thing about this specifically, he has no real chemistry with pretty much any of these guys, right? Like DJ Chark, brand new. Ladd McConkey, brand new. Those are 2 of the 3 starters on your offense at wide receiver right now, at least as far as how things played out at practice today, according to Daniel Popper. Like, he doesn't have chemistry. Like, even Quentin Johnson, they never found it last year. Like, he got some targets for sure, but, like, they never had a real chemistry there. The only guy he has is Josh Palmer that he has really any chemistry with. So to see, he's hitting 20-plus yard gains to DJ Chark and Hayden Hurst and Stone Smart. Only one of those guys even played a little bit for the Chargers last year, and Stone Smart, like, that is awesome. Seeing that he went 5 for 5 in one of those periods with completions to Ladd McConkey twice, Josh Palmer twice, DJ Chark for a 30-plus yard gain, according to Eric Smith. That's awesome, man. We should never get numb to how good this dude is.
Absolutely not. I think it's kind of funny they were talking about losing track of how awesome he was. I was, watching the press conferences, obviously, and then there was a video that came on after just 60 minutes of Justin Herbert highlights. And it's really, really easy to turn that on and just get lost in how
Just
amazing
lose an
this
hour
guy
of
is.
your day.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he even has a 60-minute highlight reel in 4 seasons. I mean, when really, like, NFL plays last about 8 to 9 seconds per play.
Yeah, on average.
How many 8 to 9 second plays do you need before you get to a 60-minute highlight reel? That's stupid.
It's absolutely amazing. But yeah, he had a big day. He ripped off a 20-plus yard gain to tight end Hayden Hurst. Also was able to hit tight end Luke Benson for a 25-yard gain down the right sideline. And also, like you mentioned with DJ Chark, according to Eric Smith, hit a 30-plus yard kind of deep ball. And also completed a pair of completions to Josh Palmer and Ladd McConkey. So in true Justin Herbert style, he was threading it all over the football field to anybody who had a pair of hands to catch that football. And then, I think I really liked what Greg Roman had to say about Justin Herbert and kind of how, just the mental aspect of the game is a really big part of the quarterback that he is. He said he saw one play, he saw it, he said while snapping his fingers, and he has the arm to just make it happen like that. There was a receiver on the right side and the read was to the left and the coverage was cheating hard to the left. He saw it out of the corner of his eye and boom, he hit it for a big chunk play. And, we hear people talk about the processor that Justin Herbert has in that, gigantic, beautiful brain of his, to be able to make those snap judgments, to be able to read the entire football field. I think when quarterbacks first come in the league, Daniel, you see a lot of half field reads from those type of quarterbacks. I think from pretty much the very beginning, Justin Herbert showed the ability to scan the entire football field and find the open receiver.
Yeah, I mean, most of the knocks on him coming out were about his leadership and how quiet he was and things like that. The processor, I think he was a biology major too that he graduated from.
Academic Heisman.
So, academic, all those things. I think the big thing here is it's interesting hearing about the chess match between Jesse Minter and Greg Roman, because what's happening is what Jesse Minter said was going to happen, which is we're going to know what they want to do and we're going to try to take it away, which seems simple, but when you see it actually play out. And basically what he's saying is he ran the perfect play to stop the offensive play that Justin Herbert and Greg Roman were trying to run. And Justin Herbert made something happen anyways. And I think that truly is a mark of an elite quarterback. It's just like, hey, we covered everything perfectly and it didn't matter because Justin Herbert just is that good. And it's also just crazy to hear someone like a Greg Roman, who's coached a 2-time MVP, and Lamar Jackson being up at the podium, genuinely just blown away by what he sees from Justin Herbert. Like you can't fake kind of the way people talk about what this dude's able to do.
Yeah, no, the enthusiasm is real. And I think another person who kind of saw that as well was Albert Breer, who was also at Chargers camp. And this is what he had to say. He said, let's get the easy part out of the way here first with Justin Herbert. He has blown away the new regime in Los Angeles. The size, the arm strength, and the ability to move, of course, they knew about. But they've seen for themselves, though, is more than that. It's Herbert's aptitudes, the speed in which he was able to pick up Greg Roman's offense, and has reflected a very fast study and a maniacal worker, most likely both. And also his athleticism, specifically his ability to run and pull away from other great athletes in the open field, has been eye-opening and tantalizing for a staff that knows how to threaten defenses with a mobile quarterback. Obviously, Greg Roman with Lamar Jackson, who you just talked about. And we've seen it. Justin Herbert definitely has the ability to run with the football. And he is a lot more athletic at 6'6", 240 pounds, roughly, than most people expect. Justin Herbert is that freak athlete. And honestly, Daniel, I would not be surprised, nor, would I, not, really want to see or would not, be all right not seeing if Justin Herbert was running with the football a little bit more. I'd like to see that a little bit more often because he has the ability to do it.
It's a really slippery slope, right? I mean, it's just, okay, how do you do it cautiously? Because there's no way to do it totally safely. If you're doing it, you're opening him up potentially for more injuries. I think the other thing, too, is the last 2 seasons, you've seen him have very impactful injuries, whether it's broken fingers on both hands, fractured rib cartilage, whatever that is. So, I don't think he's going to be Josh Allen, right? And I also don't think he's going to be Lamar. I think there is some middle ground there. Like Patrick Mahomes gets a great amount of rushing yards every season just from scrambling and things like that. And I think Justin Herbert's gotten better at scrambling, but a full blown, designed runs and things like that, I just don't see it.
Yeah, it's probably for the best as well. You got to protect the golden arm of Justin Herbert. But hey, we're going to also get into J.K. Dobbins, and J.K. Dobbins is feeling himself. He is feeling really good. He is feeling healthy. And he says if he is getting the volume of carries that he wants, he expects to be one of the top backs in the NFL. And we're going to get into that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. But first, I got to tell you guys about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you will ever need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, we are back here on today's episode of the Locked On Chargers podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning into the show, and of course, to all our everydayers for checking out the Locked On Chargers podcast. Thank you so much. We very much appreciate it. Daniel, J.K. Dobbins was on the mic here after training camp day 2, and man, he was feeling really confident, looking very confident. I enjoyed what he had to say. And I mean, very, very simply, he said that if he gets the volume of carries that he wants, he expects to be one of the best in the entire NFL.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting quote, to say the least, because I think it's a little bit layered. I mean, I think first thing he's saying, hey, you got to feed me for me to have a chance to do it. And the other part of that was this, David, because he also said, I have showed that with, do you know how many yards I average a carry? Because I don't. 5.8? Okay. I don't know how many backs that got that. He's right.
True.
To have a career, average of 5.8 yards per carry is truly
ridiculous.
Nuts. I mean, that's like Jamal Charles type of stuff. Like, you just don't see that. He hasn't played he's played maybe a season and a quarter, a season and a half's worth of games. So it's not an incredibly huge sample size. But basically what he was I think the reason that this is interesting is because in his time with Baltimore, a lot of people thought he had an issue with Greg Roman, especially after the Bengals and Ravens playoff game, in which he had this to say afterwards: I should be the guy. I'm tired of holding that back. I'm tired of that. It's the playoffs. Let's go win the game. I'm a playmaker. I should be out there all the time. Even the way he said it, like he said, if I get the volume, like you kind of have to hear him say it.
Oh yeah.
Like he kind of was like, Greg, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like, if you give me the ball enough. And to be fair, he still, complimented Gus Edwards and said that they complement each other very well. And he knew who the offensive coordinator was when he took the job, right? When he signed to the Chargers, he knew what the situation was, and he knew that Gus Edwards was already entrenched here to some extent, being in that backfield and knowing he was going to be a part of it. So I thought it was interesting. I kind of love that. I like a little bit of I'm just saying I averaged 6 yards a carry, so I'm pretty good already. And I think the big thing here was just like, if I'm still that guy, I'm a 5-year-old kid, basically. I can still and think I'm still one of the best running backs in the league. And if you're going just by what he's been able to do when he's on the field, he kind of has been.
And you have to have that confidence, right? You're in the National Football League. You are amongst the best football players in the world. You have to have that mentality of, give me the ball. I'm the superstar. I'm the playmaker. I'm the one that's going to go out there and make it happen. Give it to me. Feed me more. That is what I want. And I hope that he is healthy enough to showcase his ability, because when he is healthy, the tape doesn't lie. He is explosive. He is a home run hitter. And we know what the identity of this football team, at least we think we know, because that's exactly what everybody has been telling us, is that they are going to run the ball. They are going to play physical football. They are going to want to beat the brakes off of every opponent that they play. They want to make sure you know it and you feel it. And he talked about the identity and kind of what the identity that he wants to have and what he wants this team to have. And he said, I want our identity to be a bully. I want to be a healthy bully, as Coach Harbaugh would say. We want to be bullies. We want to have a run game, and we want to have a pass game, but we want to be bully. We want to bully people, and we want to do whatever we want to do whenever we want to do it. And I absolutely love that mentality, because sometimes you're going to have to run the ball 30, 40 times. Sometimes you're going to have to throw the ball 30 or 40 times. It just depends on the opponent, what that defense is giving you. You got to take what they give you. Sometimes you got to assert your will as well.
Yeah, and I it gets me jacked up to hear that. I really love the fact that there's no question about what this team wants its identity to be, just because I think back and I look at the Brandon Staley era, and I'm just saying, what was the identity in those 3 years? In the almost 3 years that Brandon Staley was the coach, what was the identity of that team?
Because crazy he came in as a defensive
guy. Yeah, for 1 year, right? Yeah. Like, he really only carried that for 1 year.
Yeah.
What was that under Anthony Lynn? Like, I think it was supposed to be, tough and disciplinary and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was the most disorganized of all the coaches I'm going to talk about right now.
Yeah.
With, half the field out there lining up for a field goal with half the offense still on the field. Like, that was just miscommunication said at every press conference.
So embarrassing.
Mike McCoy, what is that identity? It just, you don't know how much you crave the identity until you've been missing it for over a decade. And the last time the Chargers were actually, had any kind of identity, it was Marty Schottenheimer, and it was a similar identity to what they're trying to build right now. So I love to see it. And I think the other part of that is just, he also said, we have to work on our fundamentals each and every day so that we can be a bully. So we can run the ball. If there's 7 men in the box or if there's 5 men in the box, we got to be able to run the ball no matter what. And when I hear that, I think that's how you win games late. Your ability to run the ball when the other team knows it's coming, to be able to churn out a couple of first downs at the end of the game, to run 4 or 5 minutes off the clock. It's so invaluable. It's something the Chargers have never been able to go to as far as that well in a game late to try to seal it. It's caused them to blow many games that they had the lead late. So to see that and to see him saying, and everyone's saying it, right? Like, he's saying bully. Maybe not everyone's saying bully, but everyone's basically said something to the tune of, we're going to be a team you don't want to play. And that's what I think of when I think of wanting to play bully football.
No question about it. And I want to see that. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to have an identity, to be a team that nobody wants to face. That's what we're looking forward to here. And that's what Jim Harbaugh brings to the table, because that's what he's done every single place that he's been. But also, J.K. Dobbins is feeling really good. He's feeling really healthy. And this is what he had to say. He said, this injury, I don't feel nothing. I don't feel nothing. I actually feel faster. And that's crazy for him to say that after an Achilles injury, which is an extremely serious injury. And obviously we're talking about, something that's at the base of your foot, and we're talking about a running back, and his bread and butter is his legs.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
So
for him, like, the fact that we've even seen him through this whole process, like, he was out there at OTAs.
Yeah.
Like, Chris Rumpf isn't even back from what he had last year yet, and it wasn't a torn Achilles. And that sounds messed up. I'm not trying to, rehab shame anyone or anything like that as far as how quickly somebody's getting back. But that is unusual at the very least, right? Like, that's not something you see from an Achilles injury. I remember, last year you had Aaron Rodgers kind of feigning a comeback when that never really was going to happen. That's playing quarterback, the most protected position on the field. To be back out here this soon, right? Like 9 months after an Achilles, and do all the cuts and things and planting and all those things that you have to do with your Achilles. Super impressive. And what he also said was just like, hey, there was a time I got hurt, and had to get surgery mid-season, and I came back, and what did I do? I had back-to-back 100-yard games. Like, I don't feel like I've lost any of the explosiveness yet. And that's the one thing we've questioned, right? How long does it take him to fully trust his, what he's doing out there, to fully plant and to fully give his all on every cut? And he's saying it, which is great. We still have to see it. But I think it's awesome to hear him saying that, and also hearing him say, the game is slowing down for him a little bit.
Yes. I mean, and of course, obviously, he's been in this system before. He knows this system already. That's probably part of the calculus. When you're coming back from an injury, you probably want to go somewhere that you know exactly what you're going to be doing. That way you don't have to worry about getting healthy and then worry about learning the playbook as well. So I think, he made a good decision, coming to the Chargers, being with Greg Roman, being, in that offense that he already has excelled in at such a high level. But speaking of Greg Roman and his offense, we're going to be getting into what he had to say at the podium and how he's getting really creative with some of the backup offensive linemen. We're going to get into that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. But first, I got to tell you guys about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows the small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make this process easier. They even just launched features that help you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, back on today's episode of the Locked On Chargers podcast here with Daniel Wade on paternity leave. Thanks so much for joining me, and thank you for being an everydayer and for checking out today's episode covering day 2 of Chargers training camp. And Daniel, we got to hear from Chargers offensive coordinator Greg Roman, and he first told us kind of what the pecking order was on what the offensive running back, where the running backs were going to be, kind of, whether there was a pecking order or not. And according to him, there is no pecking order other than we know that Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins are 2 of the leaders on this football team.
Yeah, he said that they're the 2 leaders, basically saying like, oh, shoot, I just said there's no pecking order, but obviously the starters right now are J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards when he gets back. What he's saying is after those 2 guys, it's wide open. How truthful that is, I mean, you want to take it at face value. I'm sure you're going to see that they have their favorites. You're going to see that there are guys that are a leg up at this point, and we even saw it at practice on Thursday, because one of the guys we did not expect to see with the first string offense was Jarrett Patterson, a dude who was picked up last season, played on the practice squad, signed to a futures contract in the offseason, someone we didn't necessarily think was factoring into this running back equation when you bring in 3 new backs between J.K., Gus Edwards, and Kimani Vidal, and you have a former 4th-round pick in Isaiah Spiller. You have another guy in Elijah Dotson who tore up the preseason last year, and it's Jarrett Patterson that's in there getting first-string snaps, right, with the first-team offense when they went starters versus starters, because Daniel Popper said that's kind of where you get to see, hey, when it's the ones versus the ones, you see who's really won.
Yeah.
And it ended up being Jarrett Patterson getting in for some snaps there, where not even, Isaiah Spiller or even a Quentin Johnston was getting in there with the first-string receivers with that first unit. So I think that it's interesting to hear him say, like, hey, it's wide open, and I think very much public incentive, talking to his team through the media, saying, hey, everyone has a chance here. Somebody needs to step up and take those kind of running back jobs, the 3rd and 4th, however many running backs they're going to keep. Somebody can go and take that in their training camp and preseason.
Yeah, he's saying, hey, outside of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, who obviously, given their stature and their contracts, they have a spot on this team. Besides that, we have some spots available. So come take it. Come earn your role on this football team.
And also your spot might be in jeopardy, right?
Yeah,
if you're not one of those 2 guys. It's a double-edged sword.
Absolutely, for sure. And obviously, hey, the pads haven't come on. That'll start on Monday. So we'll figure out what the Chargers have. And I'm sure they will start to figure out what they have when the armor starts to come on and they really start to, figure things out and they start to actually practice real football. But, one of the other guys that Greg Roman had some really high praise for was Kimani Vidal. He had some very glowing comments where he said he's extremely productive. He maximizes runs. He has really good vision. His brain and his feet are kind of connected quickly. So when he sees something, his feet are moving right there. Once we get the pads on, we'll see more And when we get into preseason games, that'll be his chance to really shine. And him, like many others as well, especially in that running back room, the preseason is going to be extremely important. And I think we're going to see a lot more of the starters this year in preseason. It's just a feeling that I'm getting with a whole new offense, whole new defense, whole new coaching staff for the most part. I think they have to use this time to see if what they're teaching, what they're implementing on the offensive side is sticking, and see who is excelling in those roles.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Jim Harbaugh played his guys in the preseason the last time that he was an NFL head coach. We'll see if any of that has changed. It is a brand new offense. You'd have to think that Ben Herbert would be the first person to say, hey, this is stupid. Don't do that too. Right. And it just decide, like I'll always have Ryan Matthews one carry into the preseason, breaking his collarbone, like burned into my memory, tragedy.
Yeah.
And even after that, like the game with Mike Williams and a meaningless regular season game is getting hurt and has to miss a playoff game that you end up blowing. Like we've talked about it before. I think he's going to play him. As far as Kimani Vidal goes, though, I mean, I can't wait to see this dude. He is an unknown commodity. Like, we know Gus Edwards brings to the table.
Yeah.
We know what J.K. Dobbins brings to the table. We don't know what Kimani Vidal brings to the table. We know he has, ready-made pass protection skills.
Yes.
And this was from Coach Speak Index, where that quote was from, who transcribed that. Highest pass blocking grade in college football amongst running backs, turned 300-plus touches into 1,800-plus yards and 15 touchdowns last year.
Wow.
Also forced the second most missed tackles of any running back in college football last year, and he's a 6th-round pick. He's a smaller dude. I can't wait to see what the role for him is, and if I had to say, hey, if there's somebody that is RB3 or, I would pick to be favorited to win that job, it would be Kimani Vidal. I think it's also just important for the future because you have J.K. Dobbins on a 1-year contract. You have Gus Edwards on a 2-year contract. It's hard to say Isaiah Spiller's factoring into the future of this room at this point. Kimani Vidal is on a 4-year contract.
Yeah.
He could be a cheap plus player for you, or at least part of a running back committee that I think you feel good about, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm very, very excited to see Kimani Vidal as well. I want to see what he brings to the table. I want to see him out there in that backfield and how they're going to kind of figure out that rotation. So very excited for Kimani Vidal. But another person I'm excited about is Jordan McFadden and how Greg Roman is going to utilize some of the weapons that he has in his offense. And of course, I'm talking about his offensive lineman, Jordan McFadden, a backup offensive lineman, a guard who, they've been kind of experimenting, kind of moving around, Daniel, trying to utilize some of that athleticism.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm a sucker for any time you're getting, 6+ people of 300+ pounds on the field at one time. We saw it last year, right? I think Kellen Moore called it the Hulk package last year. We got really excited about it. I'll sit here and get really excited about it again. This is from Alex Insdorf, who's transcribed this from Greg Roman, who said, I think right now he's competing at guard. He's doing a great job there. He's shown us some things from a movement, skill, and mental abilities. We're experimenting with him as an extra tight end. Really good opportunity for him. And I think that is a good point, which is just basically a really good opportunity for him to provide some extra value outside of just being the backup left guard, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is another kind of thing that he has to put in his cap as far as another reason he could make the team as a former 5th-round pick of 2023 with no ties to this new regime and this new offensive coaching staff. I wonder what it means for Ben Mason, right? The guy they brought in as a fullback / tight end kind of hybrid, because according to Daniel Popper, they were putting him at fullback. They were putting him at tight end, or really as an extra offensive lineman at the end of the line of scrimmage. And seeing, Trey Pipkins with Joe Alt and Jordan McFadden all next to each other,
scary hours.
That's something that's fun to think about. And when you look at what the Ravens had, right? I think the only team in the league, one of the only teams that uses a fullback, but the only team in the league that I know that has a fullback that is as big as an offensive lineman. Patrick Ricard is over 300 pounds. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL just because of that. Just because he's literally an extra offensive lineman, but he's still doing full-blown fullback things. Yeah. I don't think that Jordan McFadden can do all of that.
Right.
But the fact that they think he has the athleticism to bring a plus as a kind of what did Jim Harbaugh tell us? Offensive linemen are weapons too. So the fact that Jordan McFadden is a chess piece for this offense right now is something I'm going to root very, very hard for throughout camp.
Absolutely. Hey, anytime you're trying to get those unbalanced looks, you're trying to have an advantage when you have more blockers than they have defenders, and you're trying to go let it eat. But that's going to wrap things up for this episode here of the Locked On Chargers podcast. I want to thank Daniel Wade for joining me on paternity leave once again, brother. The next time we join you, we will be back on Monday talking about what happened on Friday's practice and Saturday's practice. I'm hopefully going to have one of the beat writers on here. But Dan, thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the next show will be the first Locked On Chargers podcast that I haven't been on in some capacity, borderline in its existence. I know we've done it before, but only happened a very small handful of times, but definitely in good hands. Dave has done a great job. Thank you to everyone who was shouting him out in the YouTube comments yesterday.
Thank you so much.
Telling him how good of a job that he did, because he has done a great job with it. And paternity leave is great. Being away from the show sucks. Love the extra time that I get with little Dilly. But the one thing that is kind of spawned from this is us trying to get people who are at these practices when we cannot be there, because I do have a baby at home. And that's what we're hoping for is next week, 3 different beat writers covering multiple different practices next week and giving us insight to not only what happened then, but what their thoughts are throughout the rest of this offseason. I know we have Chris Rim coming on next week, trying to get Daniel Popper on the show, trying to get the best of the best, and make sure you guys are here for it. But hey, I will still be back as a special guest next week as well, because I am going to practice on Monday, is the plan, at least right now. First padded practice.
Let's go.
Gonna escape, and I will be your, on the ground correspondent, at least for the on Monday, which will be the Tuesday episode.
Sideline reporter for the Locked On Chargers podcast, Daniel Wade. Appreciate you, brother. We'll see you. Shout out to Daniel Wade again for joining me from paternity leave. Really appreciate that. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. We will put a post out on social media letting you know which one of these beat writers we are going to have on for Monday's show. But hey, make sure that you follow us everywhere you get your podcasts. Of course, we're on Facebook at Locked On Chargers, on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, on Twitter or X at Locked On LAC. You can find me on Twitter at DroTalkSD and Daniel Wade on Twitter as well at Dan Talk Sports. But that's going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for all the support. Really appreciate it. But until next time, bolt up.